Kakadosh Boker or Bekiim Bahalacha 2. Siman 4, day 50, page 166, Halacha Tet. Now, today we're going to speak about the Beracha of Al Netilat Yadayim. So, let's speak about the Beracha. Okay? Halacha Tet. When you're doing Netilat Yadayim in the morning, you have to make the Beracha of Al Netilat Yadayim before drying the hands. So that way you do the mitzvah over la siyatan. It's a general rule to do with anything that we're talking about, that you always do over la siyatan before completing the mitzvah. And the same rules for the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim for eating bread, the same exact halachot. The Arizal, he concurs with this ruling, although the Kabbalists forbid reciting the Beracha while the hands are contaminated with harmful forces, those forces are dispelled immediately after the person pours water over the hands 3 times, even before drying them, meaning like this. According to the Arizal HaKadosh, you're not allowed to make a Beracha when you have these negative klipot, or whatever you want to call them, exactly in your hands. However, though, he comes and he says, the fact that when you wash your hands, you already took it off, so therefore you don't have this anymore. Yeah? So therefore you don't have the concept of the tumah. So therefore you make the beracha even before you dry your hands. Our Chachamim taught that day 50, right? That one may not recite blessings or engage Torah study in a place where human waste products are visible, or if the odor of such products is noticeable. And they base this on the pasuk of Vayamachanecha Kadosh. Hearing is not a problem. Yeah, your camp must be a holy place. If someone cannot recite the blessing in the location where he performed, right, Netilat Yadayim, because there's an odor, right, of sewage in the air, he may dry his hands before saying the Beracha. When he's able to go somewhere there's no odor, then he makes a Beracha, even though he already dried his hands. This is based upon the ruling of Maram Nigrin, cited by the Rav Chida. The harmful forces are not displaced until after they've been dried, and that one must not recite the Beracha until after the hands are dry. So many Achronim concurred with this opinion. Nevertheless, one should recite the blessing as soon as possible after drying the hands. What? Number 161 on the footnote, he comes and he says like this. The Tashbetz testified the Marab Rotumud. He did not make the Beracha of Al Netilat Yadayim until he arrived in the synagogue. Meaning, forget about in the morning when he already washed his hands, dried his hands. He came to the Bet Knesset, and in the Bet Knesset he's doing it. Rabbi Peretz, in his gloss on the Tashbetz, he explained that this was the custom of the German Jews. But in his locale, the custom to begin Baruch Shaman in the synagogue, while everyone recited the Beracha of Netilat Yadayim at home as soon as they performed the mitzvah. And this is repeated also in the Ruchel Chaim, the Kolbo, and the Tur. The Rambam ruled that whenever someone washes his hands in preparation for eating or for saying Shema Ramidah, he first says the Beracha v'Hashek Shem Netilat Yadayim. This means that one must recite the Beracha before doing Netilat Yadayim. But the Rambam repeated this halacha also in the Shut Perador. Right? You reported that the practice of the Jews in Damascus and other cities in the east, where the cantor recites all the morning blessings, beginning with the Beracha of Netilat Yadayim, you then asked whether this infringes on the sin of making a Beracha of all the mitzvot performing the mitzvah. So what's going on? There's a Beracha Batalah. Why? Because he says, since you have to say it beforehand. There's no question that this is a blessing recited in vain, and therefore, even if the practice has been established for a long time, it must be abolished. People cannot establish a custom to do something forbidden. As the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, the Ramban's son, Rabbi Avraham, ruled likewise the same thing. So the Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam, paskin like the Rambam, otodovar. That is asur. Yeah? 1 second. So now he says this. Maran and the Bet Yosef explained that the custom of postponing Netilat Yadayim until arriving in the synagogue is based upon the position forwarded by the Rashba, that the reason why we do Netilat Yadayim in the morning is in order to say the morning blessings and thanking of Hashem for a new day. You remember we started, what's the reasoning of doing Netilat Yadayim? So we said, was it because of the Rosh? Right? Was it because of the Rashba? Because of the Zohar HaKadosh? Is it Bria Chadasha? Is it that it's a new day? Is it that you're sleeping? Is it that just the nighttime is already enough? The Tumah, there are many different reasons. So he says this is based upon the Rashba. If so, the Beracha of Netilat Yadayim gains the status of a blessing of praise and thanksgiving. As such, you could do it in the Bet Knesset. There's no problem. Even after you did the Netilat Yadayim in the morning. Maran concluded testifying that this was not the custom of Sephardic Jews, and he added that the custom of Sephardic Jews is more correct. Right? In the Shulchan Aruch, he wrote, some communities have the custom to postpone Netilat Yadayim until they go into the Bet Knesset and recite the morning blessing as a unit. Sephardic Jews do not follow this custom. Okay? Fine. That's Shulchan Aruch. Maram Halawa, right? He stated that the morning blessings that we recite every single morning, right, are blessings of praise for the way that Hashem created the world. Therefore, one may recite the blessings over the rooster's crow, even if you do not hear it. The same principle applies to all the blessings, and this is a common custom. In fact, He added the custom to say on Netilat Yadayim in the synagogue together with the other morning blessings. This blessing is considered praise to Hashem for giving back the people their life after the night's sleep. And therefore you could say it, even though it does not apply to him that morning. Which means that even if you didn't sleep at all in the morning, you still could say that Beracha. The Rishon LeZion wrote, that the ruling of the Rambam correlates with one another. He ruled that it is incorrect to follow the custom of reciting the morning blessing in the synagogue, even when they are not applicable to those people in the morning. Rather, one may recite the blessings only if one performed the act from which the blessing is instituted. Maran explained in the case of Mishneh that the Rambam means that the blessings must be recited before or while performing the acts, but one may not recite the blessing afterwards, even if one had performed the acts earlier that morning. So according to this, it is easily understood why the Rambam ruled that one must recite the blessing of Netilat Yadayim before, right, you complete the mitzvah, and certainly not later in the Bet HaKnesset. That Rishon LeZion added that it's also possible that the Beracha of Netilat Yadayim is different from the other blessings. That Oziel ruled that one may recite the morning blessings every day, even if one did not perform that particular acts, since the blessings are meant to praise Hashem for creating the world in that manner. Nevertheless, one may not recite the blessing of Netilat Yadayim unless one has performed Netilat Yadayim, or Asher Yatzar, unless you actually went to the washroom. Based on this, on those occasions when we remain awake all throughout the entire night, such as on Shavuot or Shana Rabbah, we do not say the blessings of Netilat Yadayim at all in the morning. And this is the ruling of the Ramah, the Rav Chida, and other Acharonim. So it makes sense. Yeah. That's what makes sense. Right? Again, Halacha L'Maaseh, obviously, not beforehand. Rabbeinu David Bonafedi, he comes and he says that the blessing of Netilat Yadayim is a blessing for a mitzvah, not praise like other morning blessings. Nevertheless, he suggested that it's possible that people may wait and recite in the synagogue. There's a precedent for which such a procedure he pointed out. For example, when a non-Jew immerses in a mikveh, he wants to convert to Judaism, right? He makes a beracha. He recites the blessing for immersing after he emerges from the water. Meaning he doesn't do the beracha before he goes into the water, because he's not Jewish. It's only after he gets out that's when he makes the beracha. Although this is counter to the rule of Oziel, it's permitted in this case since it's impossible otherwise, because before he immerses, he's a non-Jew. So he cannot make a beracha. Yeah, the same principle can apply to the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim. Yeah, one second. He says it is not possible to recite the blessing before performing the mitzvah, since one's hands are unclean until performing it. So therefore, the principle of Oziel cannot apply to the blessing. It would make sense to say that one may recite the blessing immediately after performing it at the time, instead of waiting until arriving in the synagogue. But it is also possible that it no longer matters how long one waits. Meaning, once anyway you're doing it afterwards, what does it matter how long? If there's an established custom in the community to recite along with the other morning blessing in the synagogue, he concluded we cannot protest the practice. So according to him, you can't be mocheh. You can't do anything. It's a custom. But what is the ruling in practice? So he says, after this entire discussion, the Rishon LeZion, he comes and he says that the Maharam Nigrin, cited by the Rav Chida and the Machzik Beracha, forwarded the position that the harmful forces remain on their hands until one dries them. After performing the Netilat Yadayim, the Rav Chida deduced from this that one must not recite the blessing until after drying one's hands. And this, right, this is like by the ruling in Kapachim Falache, the Chesed Lafim Zochol Avram. Rav Eliyahu tested the custom that most people postpone wrestling until after they have dried their hands. Since that is an established custom, he added, Saveh Beracha does not apply. Nevertheless, Rav Eliyahu admitted that his personal practice was to make sure to say the Beracha before he dried his hands. Rabbi Yishchai likewise instructs to recite it before drying the hands. He explained that Oziel taught that the harmful forces are expelled once as soon as you do the Netilat Yadayim, even while the hands are still wet. And the Kavachim also testified that the same is clearly stated in the prayer book of Shalom Mizrahi Sharabi. Based on this and the following the ruling of the David ben Zimra, the Radbaz, that Rishon LeZion concluded that it's best to say the blessing in Netilat Yadayim before drying the hands. Besides, this is a common custom nowadays, right? That means nowadays that's a common custom. Nevertheless, those people who postpone it until they arrive in the Bet HaKnesset, they have sound for basis for their practice. One may rely on this if there is an odor of human waste in his home, right? See also the response of the Yabia Omen. So let's just again finish. So he says over here. So the rule is different regarding Netilat Yadayim for eating bread. In that case, if someone did not say the Beracha until after he dries his hands, he may no longer say the Beracha. Meaning, to do with Netilat Yadayim of a Seudah, if you already washed your hands and you dried them, Kaddish, there's no Beracha. That's it. You eat, you do Amotzi. Well, but you can't do a Beracha on it. That's it. You lost the Beracha.
Wash again.
How are you going to wash again? You washed already. Your hands are clean.
Well, okay,
yeah.
You touch your shoes and then you do it again. No?
One second. If someone performed Netilat Yadayim, but he cannot remember whether or not he recited the blessing in Netilat Yadayim, he may not recite it. If someone ended the blessing with the words Litol Yadayim instead of Netilat Yadayim, he should correct himself if he realizes he's there and could correct it within the second of uttering the mistake in the text. This is because it is forbidden to use a text other than the one that was specified by our Chachamim. If he did not correct himself within that time, he must assume that his blessing is valid even though he used an incorrect text, and therefore he's not going to repeat it. Okay, Halacha number 10. If no towel is available, you could dry your hands with a hot air hand drying machine. Right? Okay, as it's written in Halacha number 8. Yeah, he says if someone's hands is wrapped in bandages or a cast, so he does Netilat Yadayim on the only hand that's available. Even in such a case, right, is to recite the Beracha Netilat Yadayim. If someone goes to sleep with gloves, he still says does Netilat Yadayim when we wake up in the morning, but in this case he does not do the Beracha. See below 49, because if you remember, one of the reasons was maybe he touched his body. If he's wearing gloves, he didn't. So according to that reason, you don't do the Beracha. So because of that, you do Netilat Yadayim, but without Beracha.